Great. I can see on Shannon's computer that it's working, so that's perfect. So hello, everyone, and welcome to our in-depth laser comparison webinar. We've never done this particular type of webinar before, but I think with the introduction of some of our new machines, especially the Nova and the Nova Plus having such similar names, I think it's useful for us to go through all of our lasers, what the best use cases are for them, the different tubes that they use, and the different capabilities they have. So I'll just jump right into it, but feel free at any time to write a question in the Q&A and we'll try to answer it for you as things pop up. So some of this might be self-explanatory. Hopefully you've researched a little bit, but basically a laser is a machine used by designers, engineers, artists. We see a lot of different types of makers and creatives of different types using these machines to create projects that are 2D, like signs and keychains, but also 3D projects like assembling, robots and things like that, boxes. So there's really a lot of different things you can do with a laser. So there's kind of two types of lasers that we sell. One uses a gantry, like an XY axis, and the other one's called a I can't pronounce it.
It's a galvanometer.
Galvanometer. And that's how it controls the laser. So, and often it has always it has a program that controls vector graphics, and then you can send that to your laser, and that's basically how the computer talks to the laser. Is it uses a software, and it makes it show up on your project, whether you're using the fiber laser or using a CO2 laser. We're often using a program just to send things over. You can adjust the speed and the power in the program, and that will affect how your cut or your engrave looks. These are just some photos of the different machines that we sell. So there's the Bolt, the Nova, the Bolt Pro, and then we have the Aurora series, which is the metal marking machines. So these are the questions we often ask people when they contact us, because sometimes people don't understand exactly which machine does what. So these are the four important questions that we go to first. What projects do you plan on making, and what materials do you plan on using? So for example, if you're like, I'm engraving glass, there's a couple of machines we could use, but there's one machine that's like, kind of optimized for that. So we would recommend that machine if that was your primary project. But if you were like, hey, I'm doing some really small, precise projects, but I'm also cutting big things, we might recommend a different machine. So it's important for us to know what projects you're doing. So the other thing we would ask is if you require detailed engraving. So for example, our Nova machines, they can engrave, but they're more optimized for cutting, but most people get quite good results. But if you want something that's a really small font size, the Bolt series might be better for that. It all depends on, what the focus of your business is. Some people are still trying to figure it out. So I think these questions also help people kind of think more about, okay, what do I want to be doing? Because each laser sort of has its own optimization. And the other thing to consider is how much space do you have? A lot of people that we talk to that are our customers are like, I wish I would have gone for the biggest one possible. And but sometimes that's not always possible for people. Sometimes you have to start smaller and then grow your business and then get a bigger model as you go along, which we see a lot of people do. So just checking the questions, feel free to type them there. So we have, we're going to talk about our laser tube types and capabilities. I have an article that I posted on our blog that talks about the different laser tube types. We also talk about the laser tube types that we don't sell, but are very common that people might have heard of. But here we'll just talk about the ones that our lasers have. So you'll see we have 3 different types of lasers. We got the RF tube lasers, which are the Bolt series, and then Nova Plus, and then the CO2 glass tube lasers, which I know it's confusing. This one's called just the Nova. Nova 24, 35, 51, 63, and those numbers just kind of symbolize the size of the bed. And then we have fiber lasers, which are the galvanometer lasers, which typically engrave on metals. They use a different technology to operate. So right now I'll just focus on these two types of lasers, the RF tube and the CO2, which is what most people contact us about. However, we'll talk later about the fiber lasers as well. So we'll just talk about this technology. So how a laser cutter works, and we're talking about the glass tube lasers and the RF tube lasers. So this is an image I took off of the Thunder Laser website. If you were to open up the laser, this is sort of what you would see. So in the back area of the laser, there's a tube. This picture here shows the tube, which is a glass tube, but in the RF tube machines, it wouldn't look, it wouldn't be a clear tube, it would be encased in metal. There's a mirror in the back part of the machine that the laser tube sends the laser out, it bounces off, then it goes into the bed on the inside of the machine, which is the part you would open up, and it hits another mirror that's on the moving gantry that moves back and forth. And then that one shoots over and hits the head of the laser and shoots down onto your project. So you always have to make sure all these mirrors are aligned. Our machines come aligned, but for whatever reason, if you end up like bumping something or you're moving it, you might have to realign them. I've done it before. And it's actually not common that happens, but we have some articles on that as well. But this is sort of how the background of how it works. So for our Nova Plus and Bolt series, they can cut and engrave some similar materials. They might have different tube technologies, but they can do similar materials. So you can do plywood, hardwood, softwood, veneers, MDF. We sell a material called True Flat, which is an engineered plywood. It can cut plastics, PETG, PLA, lamecoids, fabrics of all different types. We have a lot of people doing like labels for clothing and different products, making different, what's the word for it?
Tags.
There's tags, and also these lovely patches here. This was made by one of our customers, actually. So you can engrave leathers, you can engrave leatherettes, rubber, cork, paper. It's amazing actually what you can do with paper, especially with the RF tubes. You can get really intricate stuff. You can't cut through every material, but you can engrave many materials. The only exception are like things that off gas and you don't want to be inhaling, like vinyl. That's the type of thing you shouldn't cut or engrave. But when it comes to engraving, like you can engrave on glass, you can't cut through it. Slate, rock, stone, like different bone. We've even had people engrave on bone. Ceramics, we have one company that has beautiful ceramic mugs and they engrave on them. And you can engrave onto metal surfaces. With these lasers, which is the Nova and the Bolt, they can engrave onto metal surfaces or remove the powder coating of a tumbler, for example, to reveal the metal underneath, or you can engrave on the surface with this stuff called Surmark, which is like a spray that like bonds to the metal, but it's not like a true metal engrave, and that's what the Aurora machines do. So we'll talk more about that later. And you'll see at the bottom here, these are some materials you don't want to engrave or cut. I will include this presentation to anybody that attends, so that you can click the links in here as well. But we have an article that Thunder has created that shows some example settings and like lenses you would use for different materials. So you can look on there and see if there's a material that you're looking to work with and what machine would be the best and what lens and the settings might be. So first we'll talk about the RF tubes. So the RF tubes are our most precise laser tubes. And so they're great for really detailed projects. Like photo engraving is awesome on the RF tube machines. And you'll see here, there's some tumblers as well. You can get a lot of high detail. It has quite a big size of X-axis. So you get like, Z-axis. So you get a lot of space so that you can engrave like tumblers and you can engrave dog bowls and things like that. So a lot of people use their RF tube lasers for that sort of work, but you also can cut. They're more optimized for engraving, but you can cut some materials as well, like acrylics and MDF and Baltic birch, things like that, fabrics. These are some other projects that are done well on the Bolt or any sort of RF laser that we sell, which are sort of like more crafty projects, like promotional materials. We've had people make engraved pucks, which is really cool, for gifts at the end of the hockey season, decorations for different holidays, keychains, swag for like companies. And you can see the tags for like, that was for a blanket company, different things for like events for like, you know, putting on the table or like labeling people's spots, engraving pens. You can even make three-dimensional projects like the one you see on the left there. Our friend Austin makes all sorts of mechanical cool toys, and you don't need a huge laser for that. You can use one of our smaller ones and you're just creating little bits and then putting them together. So there's a lot of different things you can do with the RF tube lasers. So this is some more close-ups of the patches. This one's like, I think a little pixelated. It's not actually the quality of the of the engrave, it's just the photo. But you'll see there's this is on suede, the one that says mini teepee, and then down below that's a leatherette, which is often like a two-colored false leather that underneath there's a different color. So we're beginning to bring those in as well for people to purchase, because they're such a cool product and they're something that does really well on the laser. Jewelry as well are done really well on the RF tube lasers because you can get a lot of detail. You can see here, this is actually one of our staff, Alexis, has made like these really cool earrings, and you can see in the ones with the butterflies, you can actually really precisely engrave out one section and then inlay another material. And that's like a really neat effect you can do with all of our lasers, but especially with the RF tube, with the precision that you get. Oops. So we have two different types of RF tubes, because a lot of people ask us, what's the difference between like the Bolt versus the Nova Plus? And the difference, the Bolt Pro Plus and Pro versus the Nova, the Bolt Original and the Nova Plus. And it's the type of tube. So we've just outlined here some of the details about the tubes. Jen, do you want to talk more about, Jen talks all day to people about tubes, so.
Yeah, so the kind of the two main tubes that we carry are the coherent tube and the SPT. SPT is a newer tube manufacturer out of China. They've really done a great job of kind of lowering the barrier to entry for RF tubes, and it allows us to put those in some of our bigger machines and keep the machines affordable. So you can see kind of the similarities between, or the differences between them. The the coherent tubes, they've been around for quite a while, and you see them, you know, but just for context, like the a 55 or 60 watt coherent tube is probably about $8,000 to $10,000. Where the SPT version of that would maybe be half to a third of that price. The SPT, or the coherent tube, has a slightly smaller dot point. That said, I use my Bolt all the time with the SPT tube, and I'm just continually blown away by the quality that I get out of that, even though it's slightly larger. We have had some users that are doing like ultra precise stuff, where they would have they have benefited from the coherent tube. And to be clear, the coherent tube exists in the Bolt Plus and the Bolt Pro. The Nova, or sorry, the Bolt standard one has SPT, and the Nova Plus has the SPT tube. So that's kind of where they're, you know, where the different machines that have them in. Yeah, and then the expectation is that the coherent tube would have a little bit longer lifespan on it, but you know, the SPT has an amazing lifespan on it as well. So
yeah, and these tubes are different than the glass tubes because they can be recharged. So with the glass tubes, they have a lifespan and you replace them. These ones, you can recharge them, which is kind of neat. But yeah, they last longer than the glass tubes, but we'll get into that. So,
and they don't require chiller.
They don't require a chiller, which people like. So I've outlined here, I won't go into every single detail, but you'll see on the Bolt Plus, there's a note saying 30 watt coherent RF. So you can see which models have like a different tube. If you have more questions, of course, I know for people that are just starting to learn this, it might be a little bit mind-boggling. So feel free to reach out to us anytime, either through email or social media. And you can see like the Bolt Plus, for example, and the Pro, like they're faster than the original Bolt. And you can see here that there's a different air supply for the Bolt Plus. So it has more control over the air, and it can do a slightly smaller font size. So that's a big plus for getting the Bolt Plus. We have one customer, I think he's actually on here, making watches and using the Bolt Plus because it has just that little bit more precision for small engraving on the backs of watches. And then this is more info about the Bolt Pro. So people ask about these lasers because there's some similarities, at least on the surface, to the Nova Plus. But like you can see here, they both have a coherent tube, whereas the Nova Plus does not. It has just the SPT, which is similar to the original Bolt. However, they are quite fast. And there's two different sizes, bigger than the original Bolt. The Bolt and the Bolt Plus come in the same size, whereas the Bolt Pro and 32 and 22, they come in a bigger size and they're much faster. Is there anything you want to
add? They're cabinet machines. So where the Bolt and the Bolt Plus are desktop, the Bolt Pros are based on have a cabinet that they sit on.
Yeah, and they have wheels, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. One of our customers that engraves leather uses the Bolt Pro 32, and it's handy because you can roll it out and move it around if you need to. My Bolt just sits in the same place, my original Bolt, because it's a desktop laser, but it can do a lot for that. So next we'll talk about the other RF tube lasers, which are the newest ones we carry, and they're the Nova Plus. So right now we have the Nova 24 Plus and the Nova 35 Plus. Like we said, they have an RF tube, it's an SPT, and then they're 60 watts, so twice as powerful as the original Bolt and the Bolt Plus. They also have like the dual air control. So do you want to talk about the design and like how you can see the front of the machine has like this kind of triangle pattern for the vents, and there's a reason for that, which Shannon can explain.
I'm not sure if there's like the pattern makes any difference, but the air assist on the top left-hand corner, it has a dual air assist selector. I mean, that's the same in all the Nova series machines, but this one has a pressure readout on it, so you can tell what your air assist is, and it will also alarm if you're not running with any air, which is a really, I think, important safety kind of feature, because if you were to cut many materials without air, then you run the risk of your material catching on fire and then causing damage to the machine and possibly your building, which ideally we want to avoid that. Was there any other? The difference between the Nova Plus and the Nova, the biggest design difference aside from the tube is the heads. So the autofocus is built into the heads on the Nova Plus. The previous Nova just had a sensor across the bed that worked as the autofocus, but the Nova Plus has a touch sensor in the head. So you'd move your head over top of your material, it would raise the bed up until the head touches, and then back it down to the right focal depth. I think it's from all the autofocus options I've seen on other lasers on the market, this is the one that I'm the most impressed with. There's always been autofocuses, available, and none of them work very well. But I'm happy with what we have on the Bolt Plus or on the Nova Plus.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's different than the ones the Bolts have. The Bolts also have an autofocus, but it's a different style.
Yeah, it provides the same kind of purpose though, and that is that your autofocus is always right where your material is. And so in the past, other autofocuses, they would try and touch something that's not under your head, which means you run the risk of crashing your head into something, right? Which is always makes me nervous, especially with our lasers in our makerspace, because it's very, very easy to crash the head if you without that. So this autofocus really kind of eliminates that risk.
We have some questions. Yeah, you're not getting the questions on your screen. So I'm glad I paused the presentation. So Stephen asked, I need to do shallow cutting with a very fine cut line. So I'm thinking an RF tube would be better. Thunder uses 2 different brands of RF tube manufacturers, which we just talked about. If I buy the cheaper version of the Nova Plus, should I expect lower quality, less reliability, larger spot size?
Yeah, I mean, that's all technically true. Although with the SPT tube, the quality is really quite amazing. So you may not be able to tell that, you know, the difference between your SPT and the coherent. Just depends on what your use case is. I'd be interested to talk with you further about that, and or if you had some stuff, we could test it with the SPT tube and see if it kind of meets your requirements. For like engraving, we've done a lot of engraving with the bolt, and you know, with a Nova, if I'm engraving something with a font size of smaller than say 2 millimeters, that I generally don't, you don't get really good results on the Nova with a glass tube. But with the SPT tube, so on the Nova Plus or the Bolt, I have no problem reading those fonts, right? In fact, the other day I was looking at one with a font size of about 1 millimeter, and I had no problem reading it. I mean, my eyes are bad enough that I had to almost use a magnifying glass, but I was able to make out the words very clearly.
And Jose has a question, but I think we answered it. Yeah, the Bolt Plus has the coherent tube, so you already have the fancy,
Yeah.
tube there. Okay, if anyone has any more questions, feel free to put them in. I will go back and check them in a few more minutes. And I'm going to go back to the presentation. Share screen. Okay. You have good questions. Okay, so we were somewhere around here. Okay, so we were on the Nova Plus, and now we'll talk about the regular Nova, which is the glass tube machine, which is optimized for cutting, but it can also engrave, like Shannon was saying. You can add a lens called the HR lens. It stands for high resolution lens, and this machine is ideal for sign makers. That's who we see loves these machines, because they have different bed sizes. They go up to quite large sizes, like you can see here, the Nova 63. And there's a pass through. You can put half a sheet of plywood in it, so it's quite useful for people that want to make big signs. So you can see here, these are some of our awesome ambassadors and customers. Do you want to add anything?
I just you said half sheet of plywood. Technically, with the Nova 51 and higher, you can feed a full sheet of plywood through it. With the Nova 35 and Nova 24, you know, your max width for your pass through is 3 feet on the Nova 35 and 2 feet on the Nova 24.
Oh yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, so one of the things that people do besides making signs is you can see this funky furniture with this little dog that we have here sitting on it. There's some interesting things you can do when you have the bigger machines, like furniture. We had a lot of people contact us about doing router templates for like cabinetry, things like that. Yeah, the Novas do well on thicker materials. And they're quite like military equipment. They're very tough machines, and a lot of people really like them because they just don't, you know, none of our machines break down, but that one, it just feels like a real beast. People have literally described it as a beast multiple times.
I think you meant manufacturing, not military.
People call it that. I've heard people call it that. It's so funny. That's what Kyle Moffat from Sticks and Doodles calls it.
They look like a tank.
Yeah, because the way, you know, with the way that the gantry moves, it kind of feels like the way that tank wheels move. And right now we have a sale on some of our machines because we're changing our storage solutions. So our smallest and largest ones are on sale. So let us know if that interests you. I think everyone wants to go for the biggest one they possibly can. So hopefully that helps people be able to get there. We've had quite a few sign makers and cabinetry makers reach out to us. And this is like obviously the giant machine, and you can pretty much do anything on it. And it's great for mass production because you can make a lot of things at once.
To be clear, we don't have the machines on sale. We have a few machines that are overstocked that we're looking to move. So it's not like once those are gone, then there's no more discount. So it's a small discount on a few machines. But please contact us if you're interested, and we can discuss that with you.
Yeah, technically Thunder doesn't do sales, but there's a discount currently. So this is more details about the Nova series. So you can see the regular Nova series has a CO2 glass tube. The glass tubes, how many hours do they last again?
Generally like 2,000 to 5,000 hours.
Yeah, and then after that, you need to replace it. Another thing that's good to know about the glass tube lasers is that in the winter, if you have it in your garage, you'll have to put some antifreeze in it. We have an article about which brand that you can get from like Canadian Tire, or like any local Canadian place, because I think some of the articles are based in the US and we didn't want people to get confused. So this is something a lot of our customers do. We do at the makerspace as well, just to make sure the machine runs optimally in the winter. What else can we say about that, about the glass tube?
Yeah, I mean, the chiller, people kind of often are concerned about the chiller. It actually generally works really well. You just put your distilled water in and forget about it. Maybe drain it once a year just to make sure if there's any particulate or anything that could grow algae. But generally you just set them up and forget about them. But in the case where there's any chance of it freezing, you definitely want to make sure that you're protected against that.
Yeah, and if you're concerned about that, I know a lot of customers, like they come to us and they say, oh, well, I'm putting it in my unheated garage. Like, what temperature do I have to keep it at? Like, there's a safe operating temperature. So we can send you more details about that as well if you're concerned. But it's something you probably wouldn't want to work in anything colder than that. So I think you'll be okay. Almost all of our customers, like many of them, have it in their garage. Some of them have it like in a commercial facility, but many have it in their garage. So it's worked out for them. So that's good. So now we'll talk about the fiber lasers, which are our Aurora series. There's many versions and they look very similar. So bear with us. We'll try to explain them all. So you see on the right here, there's the Aurora Lite, Aurora 8, Aurora UV, or there's Aurora 8 Pro. I forgot to put the 8 in there. And the 8s also can come with this power source called the MOPA that allows you to— the fiber source called the MOPA that allows you to engrave in color on certain materials. So Shannon knows a lot more about these machines than me, so I'll let you go through this. But do you want to maybe talk about the focus system on the different?
Yeah, so I guess the biggest difference between the Aurora Pro and the Aurora Lite is that the Aurora Lite uses a physical focusing system, either two lasers that kind of converge on a point, and then once they overlap, then you're in focus. And it also has like a physical tool that hangs off of the lens, and then basically you can just touch that to the material, and you're in focus. The thing is, like the Aurora Lite, the cost of it at $6,300 is like for an enclosed fiber laser, that's an amazing price. And I find it quite useful even without the autofocus. I don't have any trouble focusing that. We do have the Aurora Lite in stock. The other machines would be more special order. So if you're looking for something that has like the door that will automatically rise and the autofocus and then or if you want to put in the MOPA laser source to get your color engraving, those would all be special orders. And we can, if you're interested, we can discuss that with you and let you know kind of what the turnaround time would be.
So do you want to talk more about like the for these ones, not the UV, the more like the kind of projects people do?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the kind of the common use case, the most common thing people would use these machines for is for engraving like metal tags. So if they're like equipment tags, or one of the things, we were at Princess Auto a little while ago and we were engraving on tools, which is quite handy. You know, I know people often have tools at job sites, and having them labeled helps a lot to identify whose tools belong to who. You can do things like engrave on like iPhone cases or computers, or one of the things that I just got a nice chef's knife, and I'm going to be engraving like a design on the knife. I think that'll look really cool. So for doing gifts, it's a great machine for that. It works really good for engraving metal tags, or metal business cards. And if you've seen, I think in this photo on the bottom of the screen, the one on the right hand side shows a couple of metal business cards. Thank you. And I mean, that in itself, if you wanted to sell metal business cards, that in itself would justify the cost of the machine.
I'll just skip ahead to here's some more photos of projects that we have as examples. A few of our customers have these machines, and one of the things I see is very popular is like doing dog tags, rings, and then you can see here the brass coins.
The challenge coins.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention jewelry is another common use case for these machines. And you can engrave on the inside of rings if you get the right rotary for that. And then another common thing to do is marking plastics. And you can see in this, there's keyboards that have been marked, keyboard buttons that have been marked, as well as this photo on a Lamacoid. The resolution is just incredible with these machines compared to any other machine. And they're very, very fast. Up to 8,000 millimeters a second at engrave speed.
And so you can see here, the Aurora Lite on the left here, it can do metal, leatherette, acrylic, plastics, coated metal, stainless steel.
To be clear, this will not do clear acrylic. It'll only do colored acrylic.
Colored acrylic.
But lots of other plastic. Oh, it says plastic. Yes.
Yeah. But you can see here, like our other lasers do like, 1,000 millimeters a second, up to 2,000 millimeters a second. This one does 7,000 millimeters a second.
And because it's a galvanometer, the head is basically vibrating, and there's very little acceleration, deceleration time required. So yeah, it engraves very, very fast.
Yeah, so this one's the Aurora Lite, which is one of our newer machines in this series. I think it's 6,800 now. I'll have to double check, but and then once you get to like the Aurora 8 and the Aurora Pro, there's a lot more going on with this. So it's kind of a specialized use case, but you can get them in 2 different size beds. They do have smaller working areas, so they are kind of specialized to these smaller projects, but you can keep the door open when engraved that way as well, or add a rotary like Shannon was saying.
Yeah, it has pass-throughs on either side, so you can feed large objects through and engrave, safely while still looking at it from the front through the laser safe glass.
And you can see this one also comes in 2 different wattage options as well. So 20 or 50. This is sort of like the interesting thing that these machines can do is you can also add the MOPA, which will allow you to engrave in color, and it's on what materials? I think it's like stainless steel.
Titanium. Yeah. So it's a different fiber source. Fiber source gives you a little bit more flexibility or another kind of option for engraving, and yeah, the range of colors you can get on it is really, really amazing.
Yeah, I can see that being really neat for working with jewelry, for example. Any discounts on the Bolt Plus? No, sorry. Do you want another one? Is that why? That one's really popular, and they turn over really, really quickly. So that one's probably not going to go on sale anytime soon. I mean, they're never on sale. It's just a special discount because we're changing where we're storing our stuff.
Yeah. So we're clearing out a few of it's mostly the Nova 63 and the Nova 24. But yeah, if you have questions, feel free to message us, and we can talk you through.
Okay.
And again, the sale is something that Thunder Laser doesn't do sales. So I feel like a little bit nervous about calling it a sale. We do have a discount on a select number of available machines that will last only as long as those machines are still in stock.
Yeah, special
And I
circumstance.
sold one like 2 days ago. So,
Oh, cool.
yeah.
Okay, I'll go back to presenting. We'll move on to the next. Sorry, I was sharing entire screen. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, Tess just sent me a message. I think I accidentally said the Aurora Lite was 6,300. It's not. It's 6,800.
I knew it.
My apologies.
Okay. We already showed you that picture. Okay, and then the last one in the Aurora series is the Aurora UV, which can do a lot of the same things, except for it can also do glass and wood. So it's kind of an interesting machine. I know that we have one at our showroom at the Makerspace in Calgary here. So Shannon knows a lot more than I do because I don't live here.
Yeah, so the Aurora Lite, sorry, the UV is probably the most flexible of the laser sources. Like, you can do the most different materials with it. The trouble is at 5 watts, it's like the laser source is like probably twice as expensive as the 50 watt, and so it's at a tenth the power, it's twice the price. It is a really cool laser source, and you can do a wide variety of materials with it, including the best resolution you'll get on doing glass. However, it is like, because it's so much more expensive than other similar lasers, your bang for your buck may not be, unless you want to do those specific items, you may not get the bang for your buck out of the UV. So it just really depends on kind of what your use case is, whether you would get a UV or not.
Yeah, and just to be clear, these machines won't cut really. It is possible to cut a very thin business card, but it's like slow. So I wouldn't really recommend people look to this machine for like their cutting. It's an engraving machine. So yeah, so we have 3 different ones at the Makerspace that at our showroom there in Calgary. So if you want to see in person, or you want us to do material tests because you want to see what's possible with it, send us an email to sales@thunderlaser.ca. Oh, we're duplicated on your screen. Okay. Next, we'll talk about the lenses. So Shannon mentioned that the new Nova Plus has, I can hide this so we don't have to.
Yeah, it's weird. It's showing.
There you go. It's because you're an organizer too. So this
Oh,
is the laser lenses. So the Nova Plus has a new style of lens. So you'll see here, this is just the regular Nova, the glass tube Nova. We'll talk about that first. So this is on the left is the HR, the high resolution lens, and that will narrow the beam of the laser to be very small so that you can engrave smaller, more detailed projects. And there's the 4-inch lens that the focal distance is like further from the laser head, and that will allow you to cut like thicker materials and projects that, like, for example, if you're engraving a tumbler and one side of the tumbler is higher and then it tapers, then you won't go out of focus using the 4-inch lens. Whereas if you use the one built in, you might go out of focus.
I just want to mention one thing. These are labeled incorrectly. The one on the right is the HR lens, and the one on the left is the 4-inch lens.
We'll switch it around.
but yeah, everything else.
This is what happens when Shannon didn't look over my slide.
I just didn't notice it until you said it.
So these are the RF tube lenses. So you'll see here this new focusing system that Shannon mentioned. It looks a lot different than the one for the bolt. So yeah, and they're different colors so that's kind of cool. So it's really obvious how different they are from each other. One has a line, one's black, one's blue, one's red. That's awesome. And then we have the different lenses. Maybe you can explain why you would use different lenses.
Yeah, so the biggest thing is when you're with your lens, when like if you imagine an X coming off of the lens where the center of the X is your focal point, a 2-inch or 1.5-inch lens or X is going to be much, or how do I say this? It's the point will be sharper on the 1.5-inch. The point will be, but the sweet spot for engraving will be longer on the 4-inch lens. So you'll get better resolution with the 1.5-inch, but you have more forgiveness with the 4-inch. So if you're out of focus by 1 millimeter with the 1.5-inch, then you're going to have really terrible results. However, if you're out of focus on the 4-inch, you can be out of focus by 3-4 millimeters even, and you'll still get good results with it. So it gives you a little bit more flexibility if what you're engraving on isn't perfectly flat. The other thing that the 4-inch lens is really good for is engraving, is cutting through thicker material. Because if you're cutting through something, let's say, thicker than 1/2 inch, the 2-inch lens will start to burn the edges. You'll get melty or burned edges, whereas the 4-inch will give you a straighter beam over that distance.
Excellent. And then we're going to talk about the Aurora.
Yeah, so the Aurora comes standard with a 6-inch lens. You can get them either with a 4 or 6 or 8-inch lenses, but they come standard with a 6-inch lens, and then can be upgraded to an 8-inch. The thing you got to be aware of that when you upgrade it, you're losing a little bit of resolution and power, but then you get the benefit of a bigger engraving area. So the 6 inches standard, we kind of feel it provides flexibility, but still a fair amount of a decent sized engraving space.
Mm. Next, we're going to talk about laser software. A lot of people contact us and they ask if, can they use the same software? Maybe they're using Illustrator or they're using some other program and they're like, can I use that to design still? The answer is yes. However, you still do need a software to connect to the laser. So you can design in one software, bring it into a program, and then send it to the laser, or you can do all your designing in the software. We have our favorites. So we have an outline here of a few of the programs that we recommend using. So for example, our lasers come for free with RDWorks. However, we like Lightburn a lot more because it's just a lot more flexible. Shannon has a lot to say about Lightburn.
Yeah, I would say with the software that we would recommend is pretty much Lightburn. It gives you the ability to do the designs that you would normally do in like Illustrator or other software like that. You can do it right in Lightburn. RDWorks, which is free with the controller, doesn't really have much in the way of design ability. It's also not nearly as stable. So, you're more likely to crash with RDWorks, and it doesn't work on Mac either. So Lightburn has that benefit of, while it's paid, it is a full design suite. It works on both Mac and PC. It works on many different types of lasers as well. It'll work both on the fiber laser and the gantry lasers that we have, like the Nova Bolt and Aurora. But it also has some really cool features with it. You can do things like, if you're engraving on a mug that's tapered, you can adjust your image to correct for the taper. It has a really cool feature called print and cut, where if you have something printed out with registration marks, then you can use the software to align to the registration marks and then cut stuff out kind of precisely where you would expect it to cut, without having to do a lot of measuring, right? It's just built into the software. It works really well. It works well with a camera. It has really good rotary software. So there's a lot of reasons why we recommend Lightburn. It is $275. That gives you 3 licenses, but pretty much I would say like 8% of our customers use Lightburn. It just, from a learning perspective, the learning curve is shorter than some of these other programs. I would say the exception to that is LaserMaker. LaserMaker is free software that's provided by Thunder Laser. but it's really more targeted at the education market than the manufacturing market. So I would say Lightburn for most of our customers is the way to go. And then EasyCAD for, I hate EasyCAD so much. The nickname of EasyCAD is Easy Crash. So wherever I get an option to use Lightburn, I will use Lightburn.
We're just being honest here. And yeah, Lightburn is like a one-time payment, basically. So you don't have to upgrade it if you don't want to. It is kind of handy once in a while to pay for the upgrade, but if you pay for the upgrade like 3 years from now, they'll give you all the upgrades from like the past 3 years. And it is quite a good program. Like I started off learning Photoshop and all those things, and then I was learning in Lightburn. And at first it was a bit different because it's a vector software, but it's actually quite easy to learn. And their forums and their videos and everything are so easy. Their help in their community is just phenomenal. Like it's funny because I work at Thunder, and instead of asking our team, I just go to the Lightburn forums because it's so easy and efficient, and they're really great at answering things right away. But of course, you know, you can ask us, but also we have our Facebook groups. A lot of people have a lot of experience in certain areas of using the program for specific things that maybe we haven't had experience doing. So sometimes these community groups are actually really awesome for that. And so just for people, if you've never done this before and you don't know anything about Laser World, I'll just kind of go into what these programs do. So when you're using something like Photoshop or Paint, that program that's like built into your computer, it creates files that are like raster files, which is like when you zoom into a picture, when you see the pixels, that is what a raster file is. Whereas a vector file, it's like when you create a logo for a company and you see it on a t-shirt and then you see it on a bus, it's mathematically calculating how to make it not pixelated so it can infinitely stretch, and it will always calculate how it has to be designed in order to not get pixelated. So that's what we're doing when we use these softwares, is we're creating something in a vector. So you can take an image that is a JPEG and you can bring it into something like Lightburn and turn it into a vector. But you also have to keep in mind that the photo should be pretty high quality, and it's best if you have one that is like black and white or something that's very clearly defined, because then the program can like capture it and sort of live trace it. But if you have a really pixelated picture, it will capture all the pixels around the edge, and then it won't create as good of an engrave. But you can use JPEG pictures and drag them in if you want to. You'll just get a higher quality image if you design in a vector. Anything to add to that? No? Okay. So for example, you can engrave photos, but it's not going to turn out as well as if you have a very high contrast image. So what, you know, if you ever look for a photo online or something, just to do some examples and projects, you want to find something that's designed to be vector-like or is a vector, because it will be designed in a way that makes it a lot easier for the laser to cut and engrave. And so this is just a link to an article I wrote about how to import from other programs. So some people might have had a different brand of laser and they're designing in another software. You can export your files out of that onto Lightburn. You can use CorelDRAW, all these different Adobe programs, and you can bring the files into Lightburn. And then next we'll talk about laser maintenance. Shannon, do you want to go through? Shannon has some lasers in a shared space, so it's very important, especially in that kind of environment, to keep the lasers maintained.
Yeah, so for maintaining the lasers, Thunder laser machines are built so they're relatively easy to maintain. I know that when a lot of the kind of the home use lasers especially are really difficult, and I know from just an ease of use perspective, especially in a shared space, we find that if they're easy to maintain, then people will actually maintain them. And when they're well maintained, you get better quality cuts and engraves. So it is quite important to be regularly maintaining your machines. The nice thing is, like, the focus lens cleaning, which is your most common maintenance item, really takes seconds to do. It's, you know, on the both the Nova and the Bolt series, getting the lenses out is really quick and easy. You want to make sure there's kind of three main maintenance areas with your lasers. One is your light path. The second is your rails and any of the moving parts, and then the third one is your airflow. So for your ventilation, your fume extraction. So with a light path, you need to clean any of the optics that the laser beam passes through. Make sure the optics are clean, otherwise you'll get beam spread, and then whatever particles are on the lens or mirrors will heat up and can crack or scar your optics. So those are done the most often. And inside the bed, if you're using machines quite heavily inside the bed, you'll want to clean those daily even. And then mirrors, and especially the mirror in the back, you may want to clean that a little bit. You don't need to clean it quite as much, maybe weekly or even monthly, depending on the usage of your machine. And then the beam combiner is kind of the same. When you're cleaning the mirror in the back, also clean the beam combiner. And then yeah, you've got other stuff like the rails. Make sure those don't get grit piled up on them. They're easy enough just to wipe down, and then I put a couple drops of oil on a Q-tip and rub it along the rails. It doesn't take long at all to do. And then the honeycomb, to clean that, my trick is to spray oven cleaner on it, set it outside, and then take it to a car wash. I don't know if that's recommended by in any of the manuals, but that's how I do it, and it works quite well. And then then the last one is just making sure that you don't get dust clogged up on your ventilation, and then occasionally taking your fan apart, which is really easy. The inline fans we use are just 2 hose clamps that you loosen, remove the center point, take it outside, give it a blast of air, maybe scrape off the wind blades as well. And that's, I guess that you got chiller water. Maybe, it says 3 months. I say a year. I did leave mine long enough that I got algae in it once. So that was annoying to correct. So don't leave it for too long like I do, but I think a year is probably plenty. And then the chiller air filters, just every once in a while, take those off and blast them, but they really don't need it very often.
And a lot of people ask me, like, how much does it cost to maintain a laser? And from what I gather, I haven't had mine that long, but from what I gather is if you take care of your mirrors and your lens, especially, I mean, that's the only thing that you're going to have to replace. I see sometimes when people are first learning, they might not clean their lens enough and they might accidentally crack it because it's, like you said, it hasn't been cleaned, but that's probably the most typical
for consumable
right?
mirrors, made one. But yeah, you shouldn't. It's very, very easy and low cost.
Yeah. Once you have it, it's that's the bigger expense out of the way, and then it's just your materials, which leads us to materials. So we just started an online shop where we sell materials, and we know that for some people it's really hard to import their own stuff. They might not have the space for it. Maybe they don't need as much as the minimum order quantity. So we've started stocking different laser supplies in our shop. We're going to be adding new stuff all the time. Right now we have True Flat, which is an engineered plywood designed specifically for lasers, made in Canada. It's awesome. It's a bit cheaper than buying like your Baltic birch and things like that. And it comes in a bunch of different colors. It's already pre-finished, so it takes away that step. It's awesome. They come in different packs of color combinations. We also have MDF. A lot of people, when they're first learning lasers, they don't realize that you can't really just buy it wood from Home Depot. It's the kind of wood they have there is meant more for like construction, not really for lasering. You have to find something that's a little bit more specialized in terms of like the glues they're using and things like that. So we have sourced some products that work really well on the lasers. We test them on our machines. We can tell you the settings we're using for it so that you don't have to do all that trial and error work. Because people will often be like, your laser's broken, it's not working, my thing's melting. And it's like, oh, that's because the glue in the wood you bought it's not good. So we have them on our website. I will send a link in the follow-up email after this webinar so you can check it out for yourself. We just went on a trip to source supplies, so we're going to be selling leatherettes and acrylics in different funky colors, and we'll be putting those on our shop shortly for a pre-order. And soon lamicoids as well, which are like the 2-layer plastics where you engrave the top layer and then another layer underneath is exposed, so you don't need to like glue two different pieces together to get that result. You just have one and you just engrave down a certain depth and the other color is revealed. So I won't play these right now, but for anyone that wants to watch, we put some videos of some of our customers that are really happy and have had really successful businesses doing all sorts of different projects on the laser. This is Danielle. She's one of our very first customers, and she is a full-time chiropractor. And then she started a side business with her mom, who had recently retired, and they paid off their laser within 3 months just making tumblers. That's all they make. Custom tumblers for businesses, for weddings, for parties, for, you know, custom presents for people. And yeah, they're super happy with their machine. I think they have like a Nova 24 maybe. Yeah. Which is a good machine because it's small, but you can do other projects on it, but you can put a rotary inside. It's the perfect size for that. Same with the bolt. That would work quite well for a tumbler business. Sorry, I won't play it. I'll let you play it if you download the presentation afterwards. And another one of our very first customers that we love to talk about is Sticks and Doodles. They have a really unique business where they love Christmas. They're just like that Christmas couple. They love it so much, and they design Christmas ornaments. And the cool thing with that is that, you know, they have all these different designs. Their staff help design them. They could get some of their designs online. They design them themselves. And then the neat thing is you can go to companies and sell the whole company gifts for their staff or the families, for everybody, their community. And so you can sell like thousands of ornaments to the same company. So I'll let you watch that in your own time. And then I have a few other things I added in here. It's pretty much 1 minute to the end, so I won't go through this, but if you want to watch the presentation, it's in the link after the webinar. You'll get an email. This is about how to mass produce things off of a spreadsheet, so you don't have to customize each ornament to say John or Bob or whatever name. You can actually design the same design, but a name is automatically filled in on each ornament or project or pen or whatever you do. Anyways, I'll leave it there for now. And if you want to watch a little bit more on here, you can. And okay, so I see a question here. Stop share. I'll answer one of the questions before. As a photographer, I currently work in Photoshop. Can I import images into Lightburn in order to engrave?
So yes, that should be, we should do our own video on that. Lightburn gives you the option to do, does a really good job of doing raster engraving. But there are some tricks that, like increasing in contrast and sharpening them and stuff, that makes a lot of difference for lasering. But yeah, it does yes, photography works great on lasers.
Yeah, especially with your Bolt Plus, it'll work really well. Okay, so great, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you learned some cool stuff about the lasers today. And yeah, feel free to reach out, sales@thunderlaser.ca, or you can message and I'll answer on social media. And I'll post this video on YouTube after on our webinar playlist. Thanks, everyone. Have an awesome day.